So last month we saw the shocking video of pregnant women sleeping on the floor at the Rahima Moosa Mother and Child Hospital. The patients were said to have been sleeping on the floor for up to 3 days. Joburg MMC for Health Ashely Sauls confirmed this when he went there himself. And since then, meetings have been held to get to the bottom of the issue and find a solution. To get an update on what's been done so far, I'm joined by Ashely Sauls, MMC for Health and Social Development in Gauteng. MMC, thank you very much for your time this evening. So let's just put the issues at Rahima Moosa Mother and Child Hospital in the broader context. So in addition to that video where we saw pregnant women sleeping on the floor, there have been water issues, a lack of water, bad sanitation, electricity issues where during load shedding the generators have been failing, drug stockouts, essential equipment that does not work, doctors that are at the end of their tether. So let's put all of those issues in one basket. Can you tell us what have been the outcomes of the meetings that you held recently this week on Thursday with hospital management to try and identify the solutions going forward?
Good evening, Annalie, and good evening to all your viewers. Yes, that's correct. We finally had a meeting, myself and the CEO, together with my team and her EXCO team. And yes, indeed, we've established a whole lot of problems and issues and challenges. And indeed, the posture was different. The atmosphere was more welcoming, and both of us was committed to putting our heads together to find solutions to ensure that we provide better services for the residents of the city of Johannesburg. And as you rightfully said, there's a lot of challenges. We also identified where our role is as the city, what we should do to ensure that the challenges are less at the hospital. And as you mentioned, the electricity issue, that's on us, the water issue, that's on us. And so that's a role that we can play to ensure that the services rendered is on a better or higher quality. And then, of course, I also realized that there are good nurses, good doctors there at the hospital when I visited, but there are bad apples, and I'm a victim of having experienced one of the nurses not treating me well when I went to do that video. So the CEO and I agreed that we've got to have a zero tolerance to those portions within the staff complement that is not treating our patients, our residents with dignity, etc. But we've also come to the conclusion, as a matter of fact, the presentation was done, and I can tell you, Annalie, for sure, that one of the biggest issues that is causing the problems that we are facing, or making it worse for that matter, is the fact that the hospital is serving 40% of the patients that they need to assist is illegal foreign nationals. And that's a big and a major issue that has to be dealt with.
So how do we go about dealing with that issue? Because in the broader context of South Africa, we're dealing at the moment with a rise in xenophobic tensions. So the last thing we want to do is handle the medical care of foreign nationals, whether they are legal or illegal, in such a manner that denigrates them or makes their needs less than anyone else who is in South Africa. So let's talk about how we can channel the flow of people in the city better so that Rahima Moosa isn't so overburdened. Is that something the city's looking at?
Yes, that is something that the city is looking at, and we must be clear that we are obviously not saying that we should treat people in an inhumane manner, but we have to differentiate between being xenophobic and being patriotic. We cannot have a situation where, because of the uncontrolled influx of undocumented foreigners, South African citizens are not receiving the proper primary health care that they deserve. Whilst we talk about the rights and the needs of undocumented immigrants, we need to prioritize the very same rights of South Africans. And I want to believe that when you come to a place where there's now an imbalance, where you need to cater for undocumented foreigners at the expense of South African citizens, then we need to start asking questions. So in the city of Johannesburg, my department is also responsible for the migration policy. And when we looked at the migration policy, we saw there is not really an emphasis or even consciousness, intentionalism around the rights of South African citizens and where it overlaps. And as a result, we pulled back that immigration or migration policy, and currently is under review. So we're going to look at now saying there needs to be a balance as to how we deal with this. And then furthermore, we need to ensure that we do not put our medical staff in the moral dilemma of having to decide who to serve, because they took an ethical oath not to choose who they assist. And how we do that is we've got to ensure that from our borders, we need to ensure that the undocumented illegal immigration issue is dealt with. I mean, when I was at the hospital, I heard stories such as people coming from the DRC, and they would actually say that it's much more cheaper to fly here and come and give birth here than it is to give birth in their own country. And South Africa is considered the best place to come and do so, and specifically Rahima Moosa Hospital. And this puts pressure. There's doctors, the space, the rooms that is allocated for doctors to take a nap or to just rest a little bit. Even those rooms has been given to put in extra beds to serve the burden that the infrastructure is currently going through. And this is hampering and impacting on service delivery. And so we must not tiptoe around this issue, but we must be objective in saying, how do we deal with this? So on all levels, immigration is an issue. Department of Home Affairs, politicians, we need to have a political will, the political will to actually deal with this issue if we are going to render a better service for the residents of the city of Johannesburg.
There is a belief or a perception that undocumented foreign nationals or foreign nationals come to South Africa specifically to give birth so that their children may legally stay here. Is that something that has any merit?
Yes, and there's diverse issues that illegal foreigners are using to come into the country because they feel that there are certain particular benefits. I mean, you have a situation, I'll make another example that I heard whilst I was at the hospital, that others would, because of the overburdening, certain services will not be rendered, and then you have undocumented foreigners taking the hospital for litigation. There's been a civil matter where an undocumented foreigner actually won a case for medical negligence and had to be paid out 700,000 rand, and that there's no extra budget for litigation. That 700,000 came out of the actual health budget that's supposed to serve South African citizens. So it's also used as a way to take from our health system. So therefore, it's imperative that we put South Africans first and then put our heads together, just like myself and the CEO is now doing, to say that it's not about me, it's not about her, it's about our residents. Us as politicians needs to do the same on all levels, local, provincial, and national level, and say it's not about us, it's not about our political parties, it's about South African citizens. How can we make it better for them? And when we do that, when that is our objective, we will come up with solutions just like we're doing now for Rahima Moosa Hospital, and also that's directly under my competency, all the clinics within the city of Johannesburg, because the clinics are also overburdened by all the illegal immigrants that we have to serve.
So the issue of foreign nationals overburdening the hospital, that's a critical issue, and we can't forget that. But let's just look back at infrastructure and service delivery for just 1 second. So initially, when this video came out, the hospital CEO said, there's no crisis. Now you're saying there's a better understanding, a better attitude, a more welcoming attitude, an attitude of wanting to work at the problems. That's a good step. But surely when problems are pointed out blatantly in video, there shouldn't have to be this negotiation before admitting that there isn't a problem. That's the first point I want to make. And the second point I'd like to make and ask you about is the idea of infrastructure not being maintained. So in an article in the Daily Maverick recently, actually on the 29th, was pointed out that the hospital had said that they had approached the Gauteng Department of Infrastructure Development and notified that certain upgrades needed to be made. However, that department said that they'd never had any request for upgrades of infrastructure or refurbishment. So there's also a disconnect there. If we weren't overburdening our hospitals with foreign nationals, just providing excellent basic health care to South Africans would be a problem if we're not ticking those boxes adequately.
No, you're 100% correct. I must, although, say that the record showed that the CEO, of course, even though she was defensive around the institution that she's responsible for, so any leader will do, but she did mention, she did say that 40% of the people that they serve are illegal foreigners or are foreigners. She even mentioned that there's people that come straight from Park Station with a suitcase and goes to the hospital. So she did mention that as an issue. But you are correct. There are infrastructural issues that the hospital, for example, is 80 years old this year. So the infrastructure is really, really bad. And also the same staff complement that was there 2005, the same amount of staff is there today, even though the demand has increased. So there are indeed a neglect of the changes at the hospital, and that again points to political leadership. There's no political will to ensure that we transform this. But I must say as well that even though we can get the better service, we can build bigger hospitals, but if we don't deal with the uncontrollable illegal immigration issue, then we are building bigger hospitals just to sit with an influx of illegal immigration as well. So it has to run parallel. We must admit, as we are doing, that this is a problem. We must deal with that, with the problem of illegal immigration, and then us needs to ensure that we better the service quality for the city, for the residents of the city of Johannesburg. And it's going to require, not me alone, because I can't, it's going to require us all to do so, because I can't, but we can. And that's the posture that we have now. And I'm hoping that this is a model and an example to say that from the get-go, Anneli, I've been saying that for me, it's not about pointing fingers, it's about taking responsibility. And now the CEO is doing the same. I'm hoping the MEC will do the same, the minister will do the same, and the Minister of Home Affairs will do the same. And we put our heads together and say, let's find an amicable solution to better our services, better our infrastructure, deal with the illegal immigration issue, not the immigration issue, the illegal immigration issue. We welcome foreign nationals to come into our country, but come to build our country, come to support our country, come to expand our country, and not to overburden it and disadvantage South African citizens. But we must be clear. In our objective to deal with this issue, we must put South Africans first.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. That was Ashely Sauls, MMC for Health and Social Development in Gauteng.